Welcome to Make a Path Presents. I'm Ronnie Hayes, and today let's talk Fear the Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 10. Before we get into this, I just want to briefly cover two things. One, I'm going to change up my ratings meter. For those who are new to this channel, I used to have a meter for The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, where it would go high great, mid great, low great, high good, mid good, low good, and then I believe it was like okay and then poor. And I tried to make it as close to a 1 to 10 system as it could. That way it fit the normal rating scales or the most common rating meters out there. Now I don't really like rating them because some episodes will be great for two different reasons, you know? But I really like 3 levels of great, because you ever find a show or a movie and you're like, man, that was great. And then you watch another one and you're like, man, that was really great. So that's the idea I had with the meter. But it's confusing because now I'm noticing when I was really harsh on Fear the Walking Dead, I've seen a few comments where they were like, people were like, well, you thought these few episodes were good, but now they're bad. How do you da-da-da-da? Well, the thing is, even though it's called a low good, that's just one bump away from being poor. I mean, because you have a low good, mid good, high good, and then you got low great, mid great, high great, you know, and I still really love that meter system, so I'm going to tweak it a little bit, so until then, we won't see a meter in the reviews. The second thing I want to talk about, Fear the Fair Use. That is where AMC, if you're new to this, AMC was copyright claiming videos they didn't have any rights to. Like if I'm talking about Fear the Walking Dead and I show an image from the show or a promotional image, they would try to claim the ad revenue. It appears they have stopped, and I asked people to message me if they are getting videos that are claimed, and 5 or 6 people messaged me that said they haven't gotten a claim yet. I believe Meg hasn't gotten a claim, and a number of other people haven't. So it appears, and again, there's no communication, so it's hard to tell, but it appears that AMC's social media department has at least corrected that. Now, that's a good thing. I think that's a really good thing. It appears for now that is resolved, even though they're keeping claims on some videos, so we're going to have to go in and dispute those, but we'll talk about that when we cross that bridge. Now, this episode, let's get the pros out of the way, because I think there was only a few pros and a few parts that I really liked. I like the Chris stuff, and I have to say, I don't watch this show looking for good guys and their stories. Like, I just want an interesting story. It can be a good guy, it can be a bad guy. Like, I really like stories that are just interesting. Again, it doesn't have to be following the good guy. So when it comes to Chris, he's making decisions that a good guy just wouldn't do. A good guy wouldn't break into someone's house. It doesn't matter if you're in the apocalypse or in the old Wild West or in real life. You don't break into somebody's house, assume that they're not there, and just take their shit. You know what I mean? And then when they show themselves, you don't go, no, we're still going to take shit, because that's the vibe that group gave. So I like these interesting parts in the story. I really liked Travis and Chris's story here, because you have a father who wants to teach his son differently, wants his son to be different, but he's just not. And by the end of this episode, he has that realization, because his son just kills an innocent man, innocent in that circumstance, you know, who was just trying to protect his home and his possessions from thieves, from people who broke into his home. And again, it doesn't matter if this is post-apocalyptic or what. It's not like every man for themselves. You still got to carve out some rules on what's, you know, proper or not, because if you don't have those rules, then the person you're staying with in your group can just cut your throat in your sleep and take your possessions. Again, without rules, man, how can you feel safe ever? And it does appear from the trailer that Chris will leave with these guys, and that's a good thing. I want that to happen. I would prefer if Travis just meets back up with Madison and their group, however is more convenient and the quickest route possible. Push his story back together with them, and then with Chris and these guys, maybe he could become the villain in this story or in this series. I think that would be great. Season 3, Season 4, have them reunite again after stories taking place in different areas, and Chris has become something different. Now with Madison and Strand, here's one point that I just don't care. I know wait, let me clarify that. I don't care about going back and seeing how they got out of that mess. And I know that was a problem in this episode. Once we saw Madison, and we seen certain things like Madison's shirt, which they pulled this back in the trailer, and I made a video just talking about this, and I'm like, okay, clearly they're going to try to make it seem like Madison died here for a moment. That is so elementary that I don't even know why it's in this show. And again, it's elements like that that scream to me poor setup, just poor in general. There's that. There's Travis smashing the window and then opening the car door. Go ahead and rewind it. This is the shit that screams poor craftsmanship. You have the previous episode where a candy bar wouldn't fit in a shopping cart that had tons of space for it to fit. He literally could have fit 10 of those candy bars. And these are important things because you look at it and it makes the scene, the seriousness of the scene, so fucking stupid. You know, the girl's so serious. You know, we only take what's necessary. But there's these big gaps in the cart. The cart's overflowing, so clearly they can jam as much as they can in between the water bottles. And then you got Travis in this episode. He smashes a window, he opens the car. What is the point? You smash a window to reach in and unlock the car, but he doesn't do that. He just smashes it, opens the car door. Then you got Alicia in the elevator shaft. She jumps on the ropes, and you have zombies who are now aware. They have self-preservation just for a moment, and they stop right at the edge. I think one is even holding on, or at least it looks like that, and they're reaching out for her. Now, I understand what the filmmakers there were going for, and I'm gonna push that off on the director of this episode. That was an absolute fail. I don't know if this director was focusing more on the suspense, because it is cool. It's a cool idea, her hanging there and the zombie reaching for her face. However, between the direction they gave for that scene and the editing, it literally made it seem like the zombies were aware there was a ledge. They stopped, they reached, then they got too stupid and just fell over, or maybe their weight, they couldn't balance themselves out. That's how it felt. And it turned a scene that had a lot of potential into something that was just an eye roll at the end of the day. Well, let's talk about Alicia with this group of survivors. In the beginning, we see that it's starting to look like the outbreak was, let's say, everyone gets infected somehow. We don't know how, but everyone gets infected. And then people start dying how anyone would in life. Car accident, heart attack. Once they die, they turn into a walker. That's how it looks like this is set up in this world. So one person has a heart attack, and this woman locks everybody up inside. Now, she knows this place like the back of her hand, yet somehow, some way, people that were in there, that got locked in there, managed to survive. Not just survive, but get out and be a problematic. In one hotel, you have two groups that hate each other. You have the girl and her nephew, and then this group of survivors from the wedding that managed to survive together in a hotel for all this time. Is it like at least a month, right? Or maybe a couple weeks? I don't know. But this woman made a shitty decision. She's a shitty person. She's not a good person. At least I didn't get that vibe at all. One person got sick and turned into a walker, and she locked everybody up. So Alicia maybe she made an intelligent decision picking this girl's side, because in her mind, this girl knows the ins and outs of the hotel. Okay, I can accept that. It was a cold, calculated decision, because if Alicia was making a moral decision, she would have fed that woman to the walkers and stuck with the innocent group that was there just for a wedding. Alicia ran into this woman first, so she stuck with this person. It doesn't matter what the person did. It doesn't matter the horrors. And some of this stuff doesn't even match up, like when Alicia's like, we had to do nasty things to survive, or she tells the girl her mother and Strand were surrounded. Well, Alicia, how did you know that? Because Alicia couldn't see. She was on the balcony when the walkers were falling down. Again, these are little things that rip you out of the story, and you're like, this is just, there's poor writing sprinkled in with a lot of potential. And there is, and I'll stand by that. There's a lot of potential. Alicia had no idea they were surrounded, but all of a sudden she knew. And then Alicia told this girl that they've done worse things than trap two entire families inside a room to be killed, essentially. I mean, did you do worse things than that, Alicia? Because I didn't see you do worse things than that. I mean, I've seen you do stupid things, but not worse than that. Were you talking about your mother, or maybe burning down that compound? Because you didn't do that. Danny did that, and your mother locked Celia in, but you didn't even know about that. Did Madison tell her about that? Maybe I'm just missing some of the worst stuff that Alicia did, but I'm just not seeing it. So there's stuff in the conversation that just doesn't blend well. But rewinding back to Madison and Strand, okay, they're surrounded, and then all of a sudden it's that moment where it was supposed to be a big reveal. I didn't get that because, again, I am not at all worried that Alicia's going to die, Madison, Strand, Nick. When it comes to the end of the season, the very end, I think we'll get a major death. Maybe. That's how much I'm not worried about the characters, because they design this as if we're supposed to follow these characters and watch them change over the course of the story, not to fear for their survival. Maybe I'm the only one who feels that, but that's how I feel. I am not worried about any of them. Come the episode, the last 2 or 3 of the season, I think maybe one main character will die, not more than that. But when it comes to Madison and Strand, how did they get out of that? Well, from next week's episode, it looks like they're going to show us. But again, I don't care, because we know they got out of that. We saw Strand has a whole bloody face in the preview, so maybe they cover themselves in guts, which is becoming more problematic in my eyes, because it always felt like the walkers got something got their attention, and that's when they attacked. But if you can just get their attention, cover yourself in guts, and you're good, it's camouflage, that feels problematic. But going back to Strand and Madison, in the preview for next week, it also shows Madison looking like she's going out to the side of the bar, and walkers pour in the bar. So walkers could fall into the bar, they could cover themselves in guts and then get away, but later we see Madison isn't covered at all, so it makes me believe that she doesn't get covered. But Strand is clearly covered in the trailer, so maybe that's in a different moment of the story. Again, it looks like they just fight their way out of it, but at this point, I don't even care to see it, because we know they made it out of it, and it just wouldn't be interesting in my opinion. Okay, they got out of a bad situation. You already showed us, they're out of the situation, so that's the end of it. And again, there's some decisions that don't make sense, like when they were herding the walkers through the hotel. They had that planned out. They knew ahead of time, but they waited till the glass was going to break to throw over the bed sheet and tie it off. Now, go back and watch that. They had that area was clear. They could have prepped that. They could have tied it together. And this is why I'm saying there's potential in the story, but there's moments of lazy writing where I feel like the story writers or directors or whoever said, you know what, there's not enough tension there. Let's have them not think about setting this up beforehand, even though they did. And let's have them not make the rope out of bed sheets so she can crawl across it. That way we can build up this tension of the glass breaking, she gets the rope, is the girl going to throw her the rope, build up all that artificial tension, and then tie it off. And I say artificial because it conflicts with, the intelligent story that's there, buried underneath this artificial tension. Again, like the walkers who have that, self-awareness where they stop right at the edge of the elevator, when just a few episodes previous, we've always seen walkers lunge, grab close, and bite. So it contradicts what walkers have been doing this entire time, which is get close, get in close, and bite. Even lunging forward like the idiots who stood in the middle of the road. It's all over the place. All over the place. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to go in a comment section and think that I hate this because it's not The Walking Dead, or I just want to hate it for whatever reason possible, you can't use that excuse anymore. If you like this episode, I would just love to hear why. Not being sarcastic, being honest. What was it? Was it about the characters, about the story? I mean, go into detail, because the more and more I ask people for detail, I get general things like, I enjoyed it, it was fun, it was cool, there was action. But what? What specifically? I gave you specifics about problems with scenes, about scenes that didn't make any sense, or the scenes that were just flat out stupid. Those are specifics. If you could give me specifics, I would love that. It might even give me a different perspective to look at the show and maybe lighten up on some areas. Maybe you saw it differently. It would benefit me more to love this, or for this show to do better than it has been doing. Because if it was doing really good, then I know for years now I can review it and build with this community we have already started with the original Walking Dead. So you let me know specifically, what do you like about it? Maybe I can go back, rewatch it, and come away with something different. As of right now, it was a meh. It's still a meh, and I don't think it's going to get better than that, I'll be honest with you. Thoughts and opinions in the comment box. I'm done talking. It's your turn. Subscribe now.